All right, young scholars. Hopefully, mercifully, this should be a brief little review of the beginning of chapter 5, which is up to page 99. We ended chapter 4 in the fourth dimension, Tralfamador, with the aliens trying to explain their view of time, how they see it like a mountain, a mountain range. All time is all time, and because of that, they actually end the chapter by talking about free will. The idea that only on Earth is free will something that people believe exists because you're not really making choices if time doesn't move forward. We pick up in that same segment of the book. We get more ways of trying to illustrate how they see time, the universe. When they look at the stars, they see luminous spaghetti because they're seeing the stars move through time. Humans look like millipedes. You see them from childhood and infancy straight through to old age. And their books are collections of moments that are not caused or affected by other moments. They're just a collection of moments that would give, they read them all at once, not one after the other. There isn't any particular relationship between all of the messages, except that the author has chosen them carefully so that when seen all at once, they produce an image of life that is beautiful and surprising and deep. There is no beginning, no middle, no end, no suspense, no moral, no causes, no effects. What we love in our books are the depths of the many marvelous moments seen all at one time. In some sense, that's like the book we're reading. We're in a bunch of different moments that don't seem connected, except, as I've said before, the World War II segment where things are going in order. This is sort of tracking our time jumps. So Billy makes a quick jump to when he's 12 years old at the Grand Canyon and the Carlsbad Caverns. We get a new image here of his father's radium dial watch, which was the only source of light in the absolute darkness of the caverns. All right, then we jump back in time to Billy being deloused. That's where they, and some of this part in this segment alludes to, or in some ways reflective of, other World War II narratives where you have things like the Holocaust going on. So Billy goes into be deloused, and it's in a shower, and it's reminiscent of the showers that were used to kill people in the concentration camp. This is I had mistakenly said this was in chapter 4, but Lazaro says something stupid and gets punched. Sorry, it wasn't necessarily Lazaro. On page 91, as the Americans were waiting to move on, an altercation broke out in their rearmost rank. An American had muttered something which the guard did not like. The guard knew English, and he hauled the American out of the ranks, knocked him down. The American was astonished. He stood up shakily, spitting blood. He'd had 2 teeth knocked out. He had meant no harm by what he'd said, evidently. Had no idea the guard would hear and understand. "Why me?" he asked the guard. The guard shoved him back into ranks. "Why you? Why anybody?" he said, which is an echo of Billy Pilgrim asking the aliens why they chose him, and they said the exact same phrase. The why, the cause and effect, is also addressed here. There's a lack of cause and effect in their books, and again, this point of view of time doesn't really allow for it, since everything coexists, past, present, and future. They get their dog tags, and it is, again, reminiscent of, or it's characterized as being reminiscent of the Tralfamadorian worldview, in that your death is assumed, it's planned on. You're carrying around something that's going to be your tombstone, a constant reminder. All right, we meet Paul Lazaro and Edgar Derby. Derby is almost always addressed in the same way, as if he has got the dog tags. He's poor old Edgar Derby. Next to Lazaro was poor doomed old Edgar Derby, with his American and German dogs displayed like a necklace on the outside of his clothes. He had expected to become a captain, a company commander, because of his wisdom and age. Now he was on the Czechoslovakian border at midnight. Derby is an exception to the promise made to Mary O'Hare, in a sense. He is not a child. He is a 40-year-old teacher who actually pulled some strings to get into the Army. He's a history teacher, the idea being that he knew what he was doing. Um, Unlike, again, kids that are plunged into war regardless of whether they want to be. Lazaro is a teenager and an idiot and a car thief from Cicero, Illinois. Um, let's see, we get the welcome party from the Englishman. Very entertaining moment if you have little movies in your head. They also are middle-aged men. They outmarched 50 middle-aged Englishmen. They were singing "Hail, Hail, the Gang's All Here" from the Pirates of Penzance. And this is the first time they've seen English-speaking people. They are throwing a party for the American soldiers. They're very cheery. They have more supplies than anyone. There's a certain irony to that. The people of Germany are starving, the actual citizens, and these guys have way too much stuff due to a clerical error. All right, the supply mistake that gave them. They were among the wealthiest people in Europe in terms of food. Again, another allusion to the Holocaust in the sense that everything is described in that way, that omniscient way that Vonnegut has, where he knows everything about somebody and tells us all the information. Can sometimes feel confusing or overwhelming. But on page 96, talking about the setup of the party, only the candles and the soap were of German origin. They had a ghostly opalescent similarity. The British had no way of knowing it, but the candles and the soap were made from the fat of rendered Jews and gypsies and fairies and communists and other enemies of the state. So it goes. Clearly an allusion to what was going on in other parts of Germany during World War II. Again, also something that they're not aware of. The narrative voice has a knowledge of things that characters may never find out. I use the word omniscient, meaning all-knowing before. There's a reason for that. Anyway, we get to the point where Billy is so delirious, he actually is just sitting there, and they're putting on Cinderella, and they curse, and he laughs so hard that he shrieks and shrieks, and he's carried out and put on morphine. And your segment of reading ends with Billy having a morphine dream with the giraffes. And now the giraffes are characterized. Here's another sort of running theme on page 99. The giraffes accepted Billy as one of their own, as a harmless creature, as preposterously specialized as themselves. That's a reference to the Darwinian way of looking at them. They're specialized in terms of how they have evolved. They're ridiculously specialized, preposterously specialized in that they developed long necks just for the one component of life, of eating from the top of the trees. All right, we didn't get to any of this stuff just yet. We pop around. We need to note that Billy's in a hospital now in World War II. In our upcoming segment, he will be in a VA hospital after the war. And you're going to read to page 117. All right, I will address any questions after this. Thank you.